I guess there is the quartering to talk about. Kind of, sort of. So Internet Versus has another video on the quartering, which we could watch, but I don't really think we need to do that necessarily. I think this probably says enough for us. So Jeremy, for those who don't know, runs a channel called The Quartering, also runs Unsleeved Media and a bunch of other channels. Posts like 6 videos a day, siphoning as much money out of YouTube as he possibly can. I can't criticize him too much for that because I technically post 5 videos a day. I have 2 videos that go out on Negosaurus Live, 2 videos that go out on Suris, and 1 video, generally, that goes out on the Magic the Gathering channel. However, the content that The Quartering makes is caustic. Caustic as hell. And apparently, he's taken a social media break. He says we'll still have regular daily videos and live streams, but in case you notice, his Twitter account is gone. It's because it has been a really insane battlefield that I'm 100% making worse by interacting with and egging some of these folks on. Boy, howdy. That sounds like a thing that, I'm glad you understood. You know, I feel like maybe posting yikes when somebody is vaguely anti-Hitler is maybe not a thing that has done you any favors over the years. So in fact, I can't think of one good thing Twitter has done for me in a long time, and the constant negativity is having a real-world effect on me. Sometimes the broken clock is right, and this is one of those situations. If you're on Twitter and you're actively engaging on it, don't. You can view it because it is the place to plug into most information about the world. Like, people do still post on Twitter. Corporations do still post on Twitter. Activists do still post on Twitter. But maybe don't fucking engage. Let the platform rot. Says, in fact, I can't think of one good thing Twitter has done for me in a long time. And the constant negativity is having a real-world effect on me. It's making me do and say things I just would have never before. Buddy? Buddy, no. I don't think that's the case. I think Mr. Pisses in Basement has probably done and said things for years, irrespective of whether or not Twitter exists. I think you are blaming the substance and not the person who consumed it. So it's gonna take that time that I was wasting there and focus it on improving myself, being a better person, join some stuff at church. I don't know, really, just focusing on positive stuff. See you all tomorrow. Now, the thing is, I know that he's not gonna focus on positive stuff. I know that he's not. Because I know Jeremy. And he's gonna end up doing the same thing that he always does. He's gonna go on his channel, and he's gonna talk about the woke lefties and how they're ruining everything, and he's not gonna even think for a minute that maybe the constant negativity in his life isn't just from Twitter, it's from everything. It's from what he's doing. It's a monster of his own design. So let's see here. We have Walmart worker threatens shopper for not following Muslim law. Jet runs over crazed man at Colorado airport, but something is off. Donald Trump just broke them. Liberals admit defeat and rage. So the Frontier Airlines one, interesting. The woke liberal rage shit, my guy, again, you're just inviting all of the negativity into your own life. You're doing it yourself. This woman cooked liberals?
This woman?
Oh, hold on. When did this video come out? I'm curious.
I can't imagine one having 0.
2 hours ago, 24 minutes ago, 2 hours ago. Oh, okay, cool. So this is just more stolen content. All right, Jeremy, let's go ahead and listen to what somebody else said, because, well, your content is not really informative on the short sphere. What's going on here?
Privacy would be like, but this is a good example. Check this out.
This follows you everywhere?
Yeah, so everywhere I go.
Will they stop? Like, if they saw a kid like doing like a whip it like at the party, would they like stop them?
They can't stop anything. Like their sole purpose is to.
Hold on, is that the video? Okay, no, it's this one. This woman cooks the liberals.
Absolutely cooks the liberals. Check this out.
Saying that Republicans are trying to rig the 28 elections by only allowing American citizens to vote in the election.
That's not everything that's going on, dumbass, and you know that. Quartering going like, yes, this woman is cooking the liberals. You do understand that Trump's Supreme Court, because it is his Supreme Court at this point, basically gutted the Voting Rights Act. And, you know, I feel like just maybe historically, there's a group of people that are disenfranchised when you do that. And Tennessee is a good example of that. But don't worry, the woman's cooking the liberals. And once again, Jeremy, is there going to be a point in here where you post anything at all? No, nothing?
I'm lost because I thought in order to vote in a country, to have the right to vote, you have to be a citizen of that country.
So let's get a couple things out of the way. First of all, I don't think there's many Democrats that are actually opposed to citizens voting. Once again, there's a bunch of lies and propaganda that has been spewed out, and you are listening to it. And then you are regurgitating it on the internet. And then you are continuing to be part of the problem. Please look anything up. Secondly, can I make a hot take? I think anybody who's lived in a country for more than, say, 9 to 10 months out of the year, for, say, 5, 10 years, I think they should be allowed to vote. Because the reason that you vote in a democracy is because the rules of the country apply to you, and you have to deal with the consequences of those rules, so you get a say in those rules. But people who've lived here for years on, say, work visas don't actually get a say in those rules. They don't get a say in any of the rules for the country that, they're in. But they do get, taxed by that country. And last I checked, the United States was, in fact, founded on this really weird principle that maybe taxing people without them being able to be represented in Congress is a bad idea. And as it turns out, if you're in a district, but you have a representative that you cannot vote for or against, you're not technically represented in that district anymore. This is one of the arguments that has been used to say that the voting age should actually be lowered, because if a 16-year-old is old enough to take a steel death machine and run over a pedestrian in a fit of rage, then maybe that 16-year-old should also legally be allowed to cast a percentage of a percentage into a giant hat pool of people saying the country should be ran a different way. I mean, if they're legally allowed to run a person over in a vehicle, which they're not legally allowed to run a person over. The entire point of this, for the one idiot in the comments section who is going to take those words literally, who needs this explained to them because they're 12, a person who is 16 is allowed to drive a vehicle. And because they're allowed to drive a vehicle, one of the risks of driving a vehicle is killing a pedestrian. They are allowed to take the lives of a pedestrian into their hands, legally or otherwise, but they are allowed to legally get in the car and take those lives into their hands. They are allowed to do that gamble. We are allowed to accept that gamble. But somehow, they are not allowed to vote. They are not allowed when they can take a steel fucking bullet and drive it on the highway at high speeds. Somehow, we do not let that person have any say at all in the voting system. A voting system that is barely representative of us in the first place. Drew says, but Suris, have you considered brown people may not like it when we mass deport brown people, so we can't have them vote? So the problem is there some variation in what age you can drive. That's not a problem at all. That's actually not a problem at all. You make it to where the legal voting age for every state is the driving age. That problem gets solved instantly. You do it the same way the federal minimum wage works. The federal minimum wage is technically under most state minimum wages. It's $5 and something because the United States is broken. And most states' minimum wages are a couple dollars over that. You have a federal minimum that a state can have different say in. Federal minimum becomes 16, because that's generally when we allow that. But if a state says, no, you can't drive till 17, cool, then you also can't vote till 17 in that state. The Soccer says 725 is the federal minimum. Is it 725 now? It's been a while. When did I? Oh, wait, no, I have it backwards. My cart is before my horse. I'm an idiot. You are right. Sorry. It's that there are some states that have a minimum wage of $5 fucking. Sorry. I had it backwards. Said, but then someone who was old enough to drive and thus votes in SD moves to New Jersey and they lose their voting rights for 3 years. Okay, cool. So my purpose here isn't to create a perfect system, Trace. My purpose here is to get more people who are legally affected by the consequences of votes to be allowed to vote. If I am able to accomplish that, then I do not care. But says someone who's old enough to drive and thus vote moves to a different area, they lose their voting right for 3 years. They move to that area and they are not allowed to drive, so therefore they are not allowed to vote in that area. Cool. Is it confirmed illegal alien voter fraud cases? It's fucking low. Of course. Of course. Let's see here. Hold on. I wonder what it is. Which state does have the lowest minimum wage right now? Oh, right. That's why I got it fucking confused. I'm so dumb. Guys, would you like to know which state has a minimum wage of $5.15? I know why this number was on the brain, and I know why it happened. I know why I got confuzzled. I know exactly why. It's Georgia. It's where I fucking live. I got that confuzzled because it's what I had to look at every time I went into the back room of a McDonald's. Every time. When I go into the break room, or went into the break room back when I was a manager at McDonald's, we had a big sign that said what the federal minimum wage was, what the state minimum wage was, and what the tipped minimum wage was. Would you like to know why we had a sign saying what the tipped minimum wage was? Because if you worked at a McDonald's and you took food out for somebody and they gave you a $5 bill, you then had to report that to your manager or you got fired so that they could deduct $5 off of your pay because you got tipped for that hour. So you got tipped wage for that hour. I'm not even fucking kidding you. That was the policy. That's the policy damn near everywhere, that you can tip somebody. It's so stupid. Fury says, remember that companies pay you minimum wage? Is the company saying if we could legally pay you less, we would? Yep. Soccer says the tip minimum wage should be illegal everywhere. Agreed. Naki Bree says you don't have to report cash tips. Nobody has to know. So as an example, I was working at Walmart years ago. Walmart has cameras everywhere. And if a person, let's say the security guy, happened to be watching my camera feed, the camera feed that is pointed at me in the parking lot, and I accept a dollar bill from somebody, at that moment, that person would then make a note that the ZMS, who is on the front end, because the ZMS is at the front end of the people who are in charge of people who are doing carts, ZMS of front end needs to be notified, hey, a person has taken a tip, confront them about the tip. That was a thing that they could do. Also note some states, California, for example, have ended tipped minimum wage. Good. Tip minimum wage is stupid. The concept that I, as a person going to a restaurant, have to be responsible for your paycheck is dumb. I am willing to play that game so that the person who is serving my table is allowed to eat. I am willing to play that game for as long as the system necessitates it. But I am also going to do what I can to overthrow that particular system. Because the idea that you should be getting tips as your only wage versus you should be making at least a minimum wage and then we can give you tips afterwards for service. I would love to give you tips afterwards for service and that not be the only thing you were eating on for the entire day. I understand the reality that some people live in where the tipped wages that they get, or at least the wages they get after tips, are more than they would have made in a lot of areas in the same industry. That is a true reality depending on where you live. I know that people who say work at Marietta Diner make a pretty healthy sum. However, that is not the case for everybody who works in tipped wages. And again, I want those people to get paid more. I want them to get the 20% of my check, and also, on top of that, get a minimum wage. That's what I want. Dorita says, Darton, the company who owns Longhorns and others, were responsible for lobbying for server tip pay. They are to blame. Well, of course, they're going to lobby for server tip pay as long as they can, because that means that they don't have to pay anything to their servers. Because $2 an hour for your servers is chump change. That basically covers some of their taxes. That's it. Jet says, that wasn't a tip. I'm selling tamales in the parking lot on the side. Ha! Wage theft, most common type. Yep, but don't worry. Don't worry. The quartering is going to post about a random girl saying that liberals should be owned because citizens voting or some shit. Everything that we're talking about right now is stuff that I think everybody who works in America should be able to vote on. Like somebody's working in America on a work visa and they're working in the restaurant industry and they don't get a say in the tipped wage discussion at all. Ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. Insane to me. But the quartering, he doesn't post content where he thinks or analyzes anything. He just looks at somebody else's content, says a couple words, and then continues to play it. He either reads an article and then gives a level 1 fucking response to it, or he'll do this shit that he's doing in shorts, where he just
Influencers need to go. This guy's 100% right. Check this out.
My guy, you are an influencer. All right, nope, I can't with the mouth noises. Anybody who records themselves doing mouth noises, I apologize, but I feel like the urge to gulag is getting very strong. No, absolutely not. Okay, so you're just making fun of ASMR. I have friends who do ASMR content, and it's fun for them. There's people who enjoy it. It's not for me, but cool. Quartering gives a 2-second thing of going, influencers need to go, here's why. Random person makes fun of ASMR. Riveting content, Jeremy. Riveting content. In about a month or so, maybe less, he's going to reactivate his Twitter account. He's going to go on a drunken rampage on there. Again. He's going to get into fights with a bunch of people who used to be his friends. Again. Jeremy's not going to change. None of this is changing him. Absolutely not. He's going to sit here and wax lyrical about, I'm going to go try to be a better person. And then he's going to keep doing all the same shit that people criticized him for, as evidenced by the fact that he's still fucking doing it. I want to do the never change Leon meme. I really honestly want you to change. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitt, you know I'm not saying that last part, Sylvie Snow, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.